Journalists countrywide are being honoured for their work today at the 23rd Annual Nat Nakasa Awards. They are hosted by the South African National Editors Forum, that's SANEF. The gala dinner will also be celebrating 25 years of media freedom, with this year being dominated by the COVID-19 pandemic, fake news and, of course, political upheaval, both here and abroad. The role of the media is as important as ever. Well, our reporter Khayelihle Khumalo joins me now from Sophiatown. Let's find out from him what's on the programme today. Kaya, almost good evening to you. It is getting dark out there. So as we head on to these awards, I suppose we have to take a look at what it is that journalists are actually being honoured for. So many stories to tell this year already. So what would be sort of the deciders when it comes to the winners and content here?
Well, that's right. So it's been a very extraordinary time for the journalists in South Africa, contending with a pandemic that is deadly, but also facing a myriad of challenges in the newsrooms, where also you talk about the issue around the freedom of the media. But of course, we know that when it comes to South Africa in the continent, we seem to be doing very well. But it is a very rigorous process with quite a number of judges who are really scrutinizing and making sure that everything is just, well meshed, but also looking at the tenacity and the very unwavering commitment of the media practitioners in South Africa, oftentimes working under a very strenuous environment. But to try and perhaps give us a sense about the prestigious awards, we're joined by Executive Director of SANEF, Mr. Reggie Lucy. So, sir, thank you so much indeed. So it's a very significant night, especially because this comes as we are battling with coronavirus and many challenges, but give us a sense about the importance of tonight.
Tonight is very important, Kaya, and it's important because we are honoring journalists that have shown bravery, that have shown to be courageous, and we've been doing such for the past 23 years since the awards were first launched. And then the awards are named after a very legendary South African journalist in Nat Nakasa. We all know as journalists the history of Nat Nakasa and what Nat Nakasa did for the fraternity itself. I mean, he was part of a generation that really paved the way for us as journalists in this country, on this continent, to speak out against the ills, to speak out against the abuse of media freedom. So the awards take that in cognizance, and all the winners tonight, all the guys that are awarded, these are the guys that have shown that, they continue to show that journalism has a future, not only in South Africa, but across the continent. Whether it's community media or mainstream media, journalism in South Africa has a future, and tonight we are showcasing that.
And just once again, Reggie, I mean, your guest speaker, Mr. Hopewell Chinono, was supposed to come here from Zimbabwe, but of course, we know that he's one of those courageous journalists where it has costed him so much. He has been incarcerated so many times, maybe just once again. So now he's going to give an address virtually. So once again, it really shows that we still have quite a number of challenges to deal with.
Quite a number of challenges, especially across, not only South Africa or Southern Africa, across the continent. I mean, we all know Hopewell Chinono. We have all seen his story. We have all seen how brave he is. So we are quite greatly disappointed. The Zimbabwean judiciary couldn't hand over the passport for him to come back, to come to South Africa and deliver the speech physically. It was going to be quite awesome, but because of the best benefit of technology, this will be delivered visually, and it just shows that Hopewell himself is disappointed that he couldn't be here. And his speech, as you'll hear when it's delivered, is a powerful speech, and it's a speech that really says media freedom needs to be respected, not only in Zimbabwe, but across our continent.
And just coming back to the issue around challenges, Reggie, it's undeniable that journalists, work under very tough circumstances at times. We've seen the recent riots where some of the journalists were affected. But apart from that, the fake news factor, the abuse on social media. As SANEF, I mean, surely that's a very big challenge for you, since you are representing the editors in our newsrooms.
Absolutely. Today we had our annual general meeting where these issues were discussed. I mean, you mentioned COVID-19. COVID-19, we have lost so many colleagues and former colleagues, but also we have seen so many colleagues losing their jobs due to retrenchments. But over and above that, we have also seen some titles closing. But over and above that, we have seen our field reporters who go out there to cover these stories getting infected, thus affecting resources in newsrooms. So COVID-19 has been one challenge, but the other challenge that we've been dealing with, particularly facing our women media workers, is cyberbullying. We have seen a rise in that, and it's continuing, and it's something that we have to keep on engaging in and fighting left, right, and center. And then also there's the issue of misinformation and disinformation, something that we are glad that government, the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies is also taking that up to say this is a serious issue. We need to fight it, more especially when we want to get rid of fake news and we get the rest of South Africans really following credible news sources.
And just before I let you go, Reggie, what does, journalism, what does the future lie for journalism in South Africa? We know that it does have a very important role in strengthening democracy, in making sure that there's accountability, leaders are held accountable. But prospect in South Africa, what lies ahead?
We are positive. We are energized, and we are more than positive than ever. We have challenges. These challenges have been there, faced by our predecessors. But if you look at the future of journalism, the future of journalism looks great. It looks great that we as journalists at this moment, we are now talking about media sustainability. We are now talking about revenue generation because we want to keep jobs of our journalists. And we want to see that in 10, 15 years' time, even if the current leaders are not there, the current managers are not there, journalism is sustained. And journalism is sustained to a point that it can pay its own salaries, it can pay its own overheads. So the future of journalism and the current crop of journalists that we see, we are quite encouraged with the talent, we are quite encouraged with what our academic institutions are producing in terms of young journalists. So we are quite encouraged.
And just a quick question, I mean, what can you say to young journalists? In South Africa, because obviously it's a very tough space to be in, with a lot of issues that we are facing as journalists in the country. But what would be your message to reassure journalists that, they still have a very critical role to play?
They do, and young reporters to become journalists, they should really consider a career, because the career now calls for new ideas, it calls for new solutions, and then it really says, our constitutional democracy needs to be protected, and the media plays a key role in protecting that constitutional democracy. And this democracy, we're looking at the next 27 years. That next 27 years, we are looking at young journalists to protect media freedom, to protect, ethical journalism, to really be out there and say, we as journalists, we want to be here. So journalism is not a matter of that they want to go to tertiary institutions and want to be on TV. No, it's about the drive, it's about the bravery, it's about the courage, it's about them being out there and saying we are seeking solutions because we care about our fraternity and we care about our constitutional democracy.
And just a quick one, Reggie, before I let you go. Yourself as a veteran editor and somebody who has been in the field for quite a number of years, how do we try to restore the trust deficit? Because that's another challenge as well that we are facing, because some of us, we're found wanting. But as SANEF, how do we try to get that trust back?
It's a big issue for us. If you remember well, we had the report released by retired Judge Katie Searchwell looking into ethics. And that report was necessitated because the general South African public was losing trust in the media because there was a drop of ethics. There were several examples that are in the public domain. So we want to regain the trust. We want to tell South Africans that we are here for them. We want to get South Africans to trust the media again. We want to show South Africans as SANEF that we are hugely interested when it comes to ethics, when it comes to ethical upholding, when it comes to our journalists being ethical in whatever way they do. I mean, we as journalists, we are human beings. We'll do mistakes here and there, and we will acknowledge those mistakes. We will apologize, but deliberate mistakes are not acceptable. Unethical behavior is not acceptable. So we will always speak out against that. And that ethical report, we are quite encouraged that we received a lot lot of support for it, and we are now on a phase to implement it, to have an ethics barometer, to really look at what next, how to avoid the past mistakes that were seen in several of our newsrooms.
All right, Richie Maloisi, thank you so much indeed. So, of course, Iveka, he is with SANEF, he's the executive director. So, working so hard to make sure that tonight's gala dinner comes into reality. But of course, you know, touching on a number of issues facing newsroom. It's often said that your integrity as a journalist is your currency. And of course, named after Nat Nakasa, a journalist, you know, who died abroad so many years ago, 65 years to be precise. So the awardees will be bestowed with the prestigious awards.
Right, well, Khaya, I'm looking forward to seeing your post with you holding your award. I have no doubt the time is coming. We'll chat to you a little later on this evening.